We all grew up with that fable of the ant and the grasshopper. The
Right.
grasshopper plays all summer, has a great time, then, well, stars in the winter. The ant just slaves away, sieves everything, and survives.
It's a foundational lesson for sure.
But there's a question that nobody ever seems to ask. If the ant spends its entire, very short life just slaving away, when does the ant actually get to play?
And that question, that simple inversion, is the entire mission of this deep dive. We're talking about shifting from just survival, that ant mode, to actually thriving.
Making your life grow, not just your money.
Exactly. It's an analytical framework, really, almost an engineering approach to maximizing fulfillment.
It's so important because most of us, I think, we operate as if we have infinite time. We keep delaying gratification, saving for these experiences we promise ourselves we'll have someday.
Someday, and that someday often comes when our ability to enjoy them is seriously diminished.
It's really an optimization problem then.
That's the perfect way to put it. It's a math approach to a philosophical question. The goal is to maximize your life experiences while minimizing waste. And the ultimate waste in this context is the money you've worked for that's left over when you die.
The urgency of this really hits home with this one anecdote from the source material. It's about a couple, Aaron and John. John gets this devastating diagnosis, advanced clear cell sarcoma. And the infinite timeline they thought they had certainly shrinks down to just 3 months.
And that diagnosis just gave them this shocking, immediate clarity. Erin quit her job right away.
Instantly. And in those last few weeks, they just did the simplest things they'd always planned to do later, going to the park, watching movies, picking up their kids from school together.
They realized they'd been delaying gratification for way too long.
Yeah, saving up time and money for a future that just evaporated.
Death is a marvelous alarm clock. Most of us, when we're faced with an actual end date, we instantly prioritize life over labor.
But until that moment, we live on this default setting, just accumulating wealth as if we have forever to spend it.
Right, and what we're really spending when we work is our life energy. Every dollar represents a piece of your non-renewable time.
In this framework, it isn't just for the super wealthy.
Not at all. It's for anyone with discretionary income. Anyone who has real choices about how they allocate their time, their health, and their money.
Okay, so let's get into the first core principle here, the timing. Why is it so critical whether I take that big bucket list trip at 35 versus, say, saving it for 65?
Well, it really just comes down to biology. Our health generally declines over time, and that introduces this concept of the declining utility of money with age.
Meaning a dollar I spend when I'm younger buys more. Happiness, more utility.
Exactly. A dollar spent by a younger, healthier person buys more total enjoyment than that exact same dollar spent by an older, frailer person.
Okay, so give me a physical example of that.
Well, think about climbing the Spanish steps in Rome when you're 90. I mean, maybe you can do it, but the sheer effort might outweigh the pleasure.
For sure.
Or what about water skiing? Or even just carrying a heavy backpack through a foreign city for a few weeks. These things have huge health constraints. As your health diminishes, your bucket of potential experiences just shrinks. Your savings become less powerful.
It's fascinating because it completely overturns the conventional wisdom about saving, which reminds me of that story about the author as a young screen clerk.
Earning $18,000 a year?
Yeah, barely anything. But he was so proud because he'd managed to save $1,000.
And his boss, Joe Farrell, he just looked at him and basically called him an idiot for saving it.
Which is such a shocking thing to hear.
Yeah.
What he was taught was the right thing.
But Farrell was trying to teach him about something called consumption smoothing. The idea is you balance your spending across your entire life. In the author's case, he was saving backwards. He was depriving his struggling younger self, who really needed that money, just to give it to his guaranteed to be wealthier future self.
Well, hold on. Isn't that a bit financially irresponsible? I mean,
But
you need savings for stability.
of course, emergency funds are non-negotiable. But the logic is, if your income is expected to rise sharply, which it is for most young professionals, it is actually rational to spend more now, even to responsibly borrow for those really time-sensitive experiences.
Because the bigger sin isn't squandering a few dollars.
It's squandering the opportunities. Squandering your life is the much bigger worry.
That leads perfectly into the value of those experiences. We know from psychology that spending on experiences makes us happier than spending on things.
And not only that, experiences actually appreciate over time. They pay out what the sources call a memory dividend.
I love that term, memory dividend. Can you break that down? How does it work?
Think of it like compound interest, but for fulfillment. The trip itself, that's the principal investment. But the dividend is all the residual enjoyment you get for the rest of your life.
So showing photos, telling stories about it.
Reminiscing with the people who were there, sharing what you learned. That fulfillment curve just keeps paying out for decades.
So the memory can almost become more valuable than the event itself.
It really can. And when you share that memory, you create a new positive experience. It's like reinvesting the dividend. The sources even call positive experiences radioactive and contagious. They multiply.
And nothing illustrates this better than the story of his roommate, Jason Rufo.
Oh, it's such a great story.
They're both making $18,000 a year. Jason, even though he's broke, takes 3 months off to backpack through Europe.
And he finances the whole $10,000 trip with a massive loan, a high-interest loan even.
The author was terrified for him. But Jason was just determined. He had these profound experiences, seeing Dachau, learning about communist rule in the Czech Republic. It changed his entire worldview.
And then when the author finally goes to Europe himself, years later, at age 30...
He felt it was too late.
Yeah, the contrast is so stark. He was too established, too bougie, as he puts it, for the cheap hostels and the 60-pound backpack. That window for that kind of raw, challenging exploration had closed.
And Jason, when he looked back on that loan, he called it a bargain.
A bargain because the memories were priceless. He wouldn't trade them for anything. And that's really rule number 2. Invest in experiences early. The earlier you start, the longer that memory dividend has to compound.
We really do retire on our memory.
We absolutely do. You see it with the author's father, who is too frail to travel but got so much joy from an iPad loaded with a highlight reel of his college Rose Bowl win, a moment from decades earlier.
Wow. Which brings us to the most provocative idea in this whole framework. Rule number 3.
Aim to die with 0.
Okay, that's a great headline. But my first thought, and I'm sure for a lot of people listening, is, isn't that just incredibly reckless? What about medical costs? What if I run out?
And that's the big pushback, right? It's a valid fear. But the statistical evidence shows that for most people, the reality is the complete opposite. The vast majority of people drastically oversave.
So they die with a lot of money left on the table.
A lot of money. Just look at the data. The median net worth for households in the U.S. keeps rising until people are between 65 and 74. They're still in accumulation mode right at the end of their careers.
Never switched off ant mode.
Never. Millions of people are on track to have their money outlive them. And check this out. One study tracked retirees with over $500,000 saved.
Okay.
20 years into retirement, they had only spent down about 12% of it.
12%. They spent 40 years building that nest egg and barely touched it.
It gets worse. A third of the retirees in that study actually increased their assets in retirement.
That's just astounding. So if the goal is 0, then your net worth has to peak and then start declining at some point.
That's the net worth peak. And for most people, the optimal time for that peak is much earlier than you'd think. It's usually between the ages of 45 and 60.
Not 65 or 70. Why that midlife range?
Because that's when your health decline often starts to accelerate. It's when the utility of your money is still really high, but the cost of your time, the opportunity cost of not doing things, starts to become even higher.
And it's so important to think of the peak as a date, not just a dollar amount.
Exactly. If you just focus on hitting, say, $2 million, you'll just keep pushing that goalpost back. You'll work one more year, then one more.
And you lose irreplaceable time and health for money you might not even need.
You see it with extreme examples like John Arnold. His goal was $15 million, but he just kept working until he retired with $4 billion.
And even he had regrets.
He did. He said he'd worked past the optimal point and he'd lost years with his kids when they were infants, time he can never, ever get back.
So the default is just to stay on that autopilot. What are the tools to actually force yourself to be more deliberate?
The main one is a tool called time buckets. It's rule number 7. You basically divide your life into 5 or 10-year intervals, and then you consciously schedule the big experiences into those buckets.
So you actually map it out. I wanted to do this physically demanding trip in my 40s. I want to spend maximum time with my young kids in my 30s.
It forces you to see those windows of opportunity that are constantly closing, that can shut really abruptly.
Right.
The author gives this simple example of his daughter suddenly being too old for a Winnie the Pooh movie. That shared experience just vanished overnight.
So how do you handle those middle years? Say 30 to 60? That's when most people have money and health. but zero time.
That is the prime time to trade money for time. It's about using your financial resources to buy back hours of your life.
Give me a really practical example of that.
Okay, laundry. Let's say you net $40 an hour at your job. Doing the laundry takes you 2 hours. That's $80 worth of your life energy. If you can pay a service $50 to do it for you, that is a completely rational financial decision. You've just bought back 2 hours of your life for $50.
And the key is you don't have to use that free time to earn more money. You can just, take the kids to the park.
Exactly. Studies have shown that spending money on time-saving purchases, not luxury goods, but things that just reduce the friction of daily life, that significantly increases life satisfaction.
Okay, finally, let's talk about risk, because a lot of this requires some courage. Rule number 9 is to be bolder when you're young.
It's all about asymmetric risk. Mark Cuban put it perfectly. When he was young and taking huge risks, he said, I had nothing, so I had nothing to lose.
Right.
When you're young, the upside of success is massive, but the downside of failure is actually pretty low because you have the most valuable asset there is, time. You have decades to reload and recover from a setback.
It's like physical risk. The author wouldn't jump off a garage roof at 50, but he did it as a teen because he could heal fast.
Financial risk is the same. The older you get, the higher the stakes are, and the fewer years you have to enjoy any success. Your biggest fear shouldn't be running short of money at 85. It should be wasting your life.
So if we step back, the big mindset shift here is to stop being that compulsive ant.
And start acting like an engineer. You have to stop defaulting to just accumulation and start seeing your life as an optimization problem. The goal is to maximize the area under your lifetime fulfillment curve.
So the key actions are: invest in experiences early for those memory dividends. Know your net worth peak as a date, not just a number. And use tools like time buckets to make sure you don't miss those windows.
And let me leave you with one final thought. It's this idea of mini deaths. We don't just die once, we die a multitude of deaths as we move through life's seasons.
Wow.
The version of you that can hike that trail dies. The version of you who is a parent to a tiny child dies. So the question to ask yourself is, what specific time-sensitive experience in your current time bucket is about to disappear forever if you keep putting it off?